This talk, titled Spiritual Life, was given by Swami Yatishwaranandaji Maharaj at the New Delhi Ashrama on October 24, 1963.
I feel of all subjects deeply interested in spiritual life, spiritual practice, spiritual realization. Sitting at the feet of the great disciples of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, the religion that we learned was not just individualistic. The great ones told us that as we grow in spirit, we must be able also to help others to move along the spiritual line. In this Vivekananda centenary year, we are always hearing of the Vivekananda ideal of Atmano Mokshartham Jagadhitaya, to work for one's own spiritual freedom as well as for promoting the welfare of others. Since my young days, I always remember a saying of Swami Vivekananda. He wrote it at the end of his reply to Madras address. First, let us ourselves be gods, and then help others to be gods. This evening I would first of all read to you some sayings of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. I am reading from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Some devotees asked the Master as to how to realize God. Sri Ramakrishna replied, "You must practice spiritual discipline a little. It will not do simply to say that milk contains butter. You must let the milk set into curd and then churn it. Only then can you get butter from it. Spiritual aspirants must go into solitude now and then. After acquiring love of God in solitude, they may live in the world. If one is wearing a pair of shoes, one can easily walk over thorns. The most important thing is faith. As is a man's meditation, so also his feeling of love. As is a man's feeling of love, so is his gain. And faith is the root of all. If one has faith, one has nothing to fear." One of the devotees now asked, "Sir, is it necessary to have a guru?" The Master replied, "Yes, many need a guru. But a man must have faith in the words of the guru. One should constantly repeat the name of God. The name of God is highly effective in this Kali Yuga. The practice of yoga is not possible in this age, for the life of a man depends too much on food. Clap your hands while repeating God's name, and the birds of your sin will fly away." Then the Master says, one should always seek the company of holy men. The nearer you approach the Ganges, the cooler the breeze will feel. Again, when nearer you go to a fire, the hotter the air will feel. But, Sri Ramakrishna continues, one cannot achieve anything through laziness and procrastination. People who desire worldly enjoyment say about spiritual progress, well, it will all happen in time. we shall realize God sometime or other. There must be intense yearning for God realization. Sri Ramakrishna continues, I said to Keshav Sen, the great leader of the Brahma Samaj, this is what the master told him. When the father sees that his son has become restless for his inheritance, he gives his share of the property even 3 years before the legal time. The mother keeps on cooking, but the baby is in the bed sucking its toy. But when it throws the toy away and cries for her, she puts down the rice pot and takes the baby in her arms and nurses it. I said all this to Keshav. Ramakrishna says, Father, it is said that in the Kali Yuga, if a man can weep for God one day and one night, he sees him. He will pick at God and say to him, you have created me, now you must reveal yourself to me. Whether you live in the world or elsewhere, in a house of clay walls, there is very little light inside, and they cannot see outside at all. But those who enter the world, after attaining the knowledge of God, are like people living in a house made of glass. For them, both inside and outside are light. They can see things outside as well as inside. What his meaning is, you can feel the presence of God in the innermost core of your being, and they as well feel the presence of God outside. And it is the greatest pleasure to love God and serve God, and thereby realize the highest goal of life. The Master made it clear, the Holy Mother made it clear, all the great disciples of Bhagavan, Sri Ramakrishna, all of them made it clear that we must undergo spiritual practices. What for? For purifying the mind. All spiritual disciplines are meant to purify the mind, because the mind becomes pure. Because of Patanjali we find the first instructions are yamo and niyama. There must be an amount of moral discipline, an amount of mental control. It is then that it becomes possible to one to undergo spiritual practices, definitely. Ahimsa, satya, astya, brahmacharya, aparigraha, non-injury, truthfulness, purity of body and mind, non-covetousness, and non-dependence on others. We want to depend on the Lord alone, and we should try to avoid, minimize at least, our dependence on others. Further purification is necessary. There is shaucha, purity, physical, mental, santosha, an amount of contentment. One who goes on grumbling about the world, what can such a person achieve? There should be, to use modern language, an amount of adaptation. Shaucha, santosha, tapaha. There should be an amount of discipline of the body, an amount of discipline of the mind. We are becoming too soft. There should be an amount of toughness in a good sense in us, physically as well as mentally. Tapaha, sadhaya is study. We read books. After we have finished a book, if anybody asks, what did you read there? Most of us only able to say anything, give any definite answer. We hear lecture. If a lecture is good, we praise it. If a lecture is bad, we decry it. If you ask what did the lecturer say, after hearing the lecture, most of us won't be able to say anything, put anything definitely. It is said, words reach us to one ear and would pass out to the other ear. Nothing is retained in the brain. We read books, we are not able to say anything about it. Sadhya means, when you read something, study it, reflect on it, let the thoughts form part of our mental makeup. Let them be your own and express those thoughts to your actions. That is the implication of Sat. And Ishvara Pranidhana. We must have our self-effort. We try to strive in our own way. But at the end of the striving, we must offer all our efforts to the Supreme Spirit. Spiritual practice naturally becomes, to a certain extent, egocentric. I do my spiritual practice for realizing God, all right. But after have I done my practice, let me offer all the fruits of my spiritual practice to the Supreme Spirit. These are the preparations. After we have attained to the preliminary stage, then if we sit quietly, our mind will become calm. Our posture is a help for us to think of the Supreme Being. We may sit like a statue, nothing happens. There are people who practice various kinds of yogasana. Their mind has no thought of God. Asana will be fruitful if they are spiritually earning. Not only that, if we have prepared ourselves to some extent so that we may be able to dwell on the Lord, either with the help of some mantra or with the help of a prayer or whatever it is. There is also the next step in yoga is pranayama. Mere control of breath has no meaning. So it is said, if breath control would give one a spiritual mood, then think of the football bladder. What wonderful pranayama it is doing. What happens? We don't want that. There must be spiritual aspiration. There must be an amount of mental and physical training. Then if we do our spiritual practices become fruitful. Many a time, in the East and in the West, I've heard people complaining, I am doing my spiritual practice, I am not getting anywhere. I remember a lady in Holland at The Hague told me, Swami, I am doing my meditation for 25 years. I looked up to her. She said, I have got nothing. I said, please stop your meditation. There must be something wrong, serious wrong with it. And after starting your meditation, if you come to me, probably I will be able to give you some definite suggestions. People complain. We have seen people doing japa constantly. They lay the name of Narayana or Shiva. What is happening? Uttering the sound, but nothing, there is nothing in the mind. Mind does not become full of devotion on uttering the divine name. What is happening? Some of you might have read about the saint Durgachar Nagamahasaya. Nagamahashaya's father used to do plenty of japa. And one of the senior monks of the order told Nagamahasaya, your father is a great devotee. Do you know what Nagamahasaya said? He said, he is so much attached to me, personally. Even if he does go on doing japa, he will never reach anything spiritual. And then he said, an anchored boat does not move. The story behind it, some drunkards took it into their head to go on a boat ride. It was a moonlit night. They were all nicely drunk. They went to the ghat, hired a boat, sat at the oars, and started rowing. The whole night it is. Early morning, when the effects of the drink were gone, they found to their surprise, they have not moved an inch. What happened? They forgot to raise the anchor. You are doing your japa and dhyana. Have you raised the anchor? Have you drawn your mind away from outside things? Can't you put a little further? Listen. It is to be always borne in mind. Spiritual practice is not enough. How you are doing this spiritual practice. It is not enough if you are on the move. In which direction are you moving? I am always reminded of an American story. A motorist was moving at breakneck speed. He asked a schoolboy, "My son, I want to reach this place. Shall I be able to reach there?" And the boy promptly said, "Sir, certainly you will reach it. How many miles are you to go?" He said, "Sir, 25,000 miles. If I go the other way, just 2 miles. Do you get it? It is not enough if you move. In which direction are you moving? That is most right." So, in spiritual practice, there should be the yearning. Yearning is like a hunger. When you are physically hungry, what do? You take your food. Do you sit with your food in front of you for half an hour? Appetite is already there at once. Start taking your food. Similarly, when you want to practice your japa and dhyana, why should there be so much of exercise, so much of preparation? If there is spiritual hunger, it won't take us long to repeat the divine name, think of the Lord, meditate on the Lord, feel His divine presence, and have our spiritual appetite satisfied. In all our spiritual paths, the first steps are following certain disciplines which purify the mind. Our teachers tell us the Supreme Being is everywhere, but we don't feel His presence. Why? Because of the impurity of the mind. The Supreme Being who is transcendental, again has manifested Himself as all souls and the universe, who dwells in the hearts of each one of us, who is manifest in every being. Him we do not perceive. Why? Because our minds are drawn away from the world of the spirit. The mind wants to be immersed in worldliness, in sensual pleasure. So what is needed is mental purification. In order to attain to mental purification, what is needed is moral practice, ethical culture, entertaining noble thoughts, good feelings, good actions, avoiding the opposite, evil thoughts, evil feelings, evil actions, as much as we can. That's the first step. The duties of life are to be performed in a spirit of detachment as well as in a spirit of dedication, a service to God. We are all souls, parts as a pair of the infinite spirit. And the souls are born in this world, they become embodied to play a part in this cosmic drama of life. Whatever be the part that has been allotted to one, that part is to be performed in the proper way, as I have said, as much as possible in a spirit of detachment, as a form of service to God. But moral practice, fulfillment of duties are not enough to purify the mind. You have to meditate also on the Supreme Being, take Him in any aspect you like, with the embodiment of purity, knowledge, devotion, compassion, love and bliss. It is for this reason spiritual practice is very, very important. But here comes a most important question. We usually want to speak of God, but the first thing that we ask ourselves is, what are we? Are we this mass of flesh and bones, or are we a conscious unit that has permeated this body? As our teachers say, it permeates the mind also. Make a spirit that makes dead things appear alive. It's the most important question. We are all souls. We are all in several forms in spirit. And the great task in spiritual life is, as Swami Vivekananda put it, to bring about the union between the eternal soul and eternal God. What do we do mostly? We identify ourselves with the body. I am a man, I am a woman, I worship a male god or a female god. Now, I begin my spiritual life this way, I end my spiritual life this way. What do I gain? So it is essential for every spiritual seeker, at the beginning of one's japa and dhyana and worship, to think of the spirit that you are. And then we have to live our life in such a way, do our meditation in such a way, that ultimately the barriers that stand between us and the infinite spirit would gradually disappear, and will be blessed with the vision, with the union with the Supreme Spirit, who is Satchidananda. Ordinarily we are afraid of a God who is ever ready to punish us if we break his petty laws. He is the creator, observer, destroyer, ruler. But more than that, in spiritual life, what do you want? We want the Satchidananda, the eternal existence, his eternal presence, eternal consciousness, eternal love, and eternal bliss. We must be able to connect ourselves somehow or other with the God we worship. We identify ourselves with the body, we say, this is my body. We identify ourselves with relations and friends, these are my relations. Similarly, a close relationship is to be established with the Supreme Spirit. Do it on a spiritual plane, or do it in a human way. Look upon God if you can, as the soul of your soul. Look upon Him as a father. Look upon Him as a mother, as a friend, as a beloved. So if we feel a definite interest in the ideal we worship, then naturally our mind will be drawn towards the ideal. As I have said, to the extent the mind becomes pure, to that extent mind will be drawn towards that which is infinite love and bliss. What do we want? Our souls are yearning for infinite love and bliss, isn't it? But having cut ourselves off from the infinite soul, we see a drop of love, drop of joy somewhere, we rush towards that, and then what we get? A person has got a drop of love and joy, and if you approach a person, does anyone give him the whole drop? No. He'll get a little of the drop and get a more from it. That's the way of the world. Does it then mean that you run away from the world? No. Let us remain in it. Take the world as it is. Lay our part to the best of our ability, and play our part in such a way that ultimately we attain to divine illumination, divine love and divine bliss. And this divine love and divine bliss we have to share with our fellow beings. One question was asked by a devotee: is a spiritual teacher necessary? And the master has said, it is necessary for many. There are souls born with tremendous spiritual potentiality. They feel the presence of the Lord. They feel the divine guidance. For them, teachers are not necessary. But for ordinary people, teachers are necessary. In spiritual life, as they are necessary when you want to have in secular study. Once a devotee asked Swami Brahmananda, Sir, is a guru necessary? And in a humorous mood, Maharaj said, even if you want to be a thief, you need a teacher, when you need training. How much more should be the necessity for a teacher when you want to know the highest truth? Simple answer. When I want to be an astronomer, what do I do? The astronomer is making an astounding statement. We see the sun rises, we see the sun setting. He says the sun never rises, never sets. All this is due to the movement of the earth. Unbelievable at the beginning. It's true. And he is wrong. Lord bless us. But if we come to doubt, we are deceived by many of our sense perceptions. So this also is one of them. Why not? I go to him, sit at his feet, try to understand his point of view. That is the beginning of my study of astronomy. And when I learn from him, make experiments, then I find, as he has done, the sun does not move. All this is created by the movement of the earth. Similarly, in spiritual life, we need discipline. Our time is short. We began late. I think we should end at 6:15. So I told some friends the other day of an actual story. The great actor dramatist J.C. Ghose, towards the close of his life, used to practice homeopathy. He had a wonderful knack, but with a wonderful intuition. And over and above that, to take the name of the master and give medicine, and medicine very often what wanted. A young man came and told Girish Babu Sahib, I am very much distressed. I lost my wristwatch. A very fine-looking, middle-aged gentleman was sitting there. And he became inquisitive. Why did you lose it? At what hour? At what place? And the young man told him where he lost it, at what hour he lost it, under what circumstances he lost it. And the gentleman quietly said, you will get it. Who was it? One of the leaders of the pickpockets. They got a huge training school, primary teaching, primary practice, then higher practice, and so on. And the young man got it. Remember, we need the help of competent teachers who, of course, are themselves following the path and to some extent at least can help us in our path. The best of our teachers is, as Patanjali says, Ishvara, he is the Guru of all Gurus. We learn our teachings from our teachers, they learn from their God. Ishvara is the teacher of all teachers, and it dwells in each one of us. But how many of us are able to contact the inner teacher? All is dwelling within ourselves, so we need an outside teacher who brings to us the message of the Supreme Spirit. The best of our teachers is God. Next to him are divine incarnation. Next to him are people with moderate realization. It may be like this in spiritual life. The senior class student teaching junior class students. But we should approach one who is himself following the path and has made some progress. Following the words of the teacher, we do our spiritual practice. Our ideal is to come in touch with him, who dwells within. So Sai Brahman used to tell us many a time, my boy, do your spiritual practice in such a way that your mind itself becomes the Guru. Mind does not become the Guru, but the purified mind comes in touch with the divine mind and gets all instructions from the divine mind. So, he is no more dependent on an outside teacher. His teacher dwells within and he guides him. And so, his main task is to follow the spiritual path, step by step, and move towards the highest realization. Ramakrishna has said, nothing can be achieved by one who is lazy and procrastinating. All our teachers all our divine incarnations, they have been stressing that point. In Patanjali Yoga Sutra, the teacher said, mind can be controlled. Obhyasa vairagyabhyam tannirodha. That mind can be fully controlled through vairagya, through detachment, and through regular practice. Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna said the same thing. All our teachers, we find the same two words in the Bhagavad Gita. After hearing Bhagavan's discourse in the 6th chapter of the Gita, Arjuna asked him, you speak of mental control. What are you find? Tasyaham nigrahangamanye vayoriva sudushkaram. Control the mind is as difficult to control the wind that is blowing. It is infinite, in its infinite mercy. The Lord says, you are right. But, obhyasena tukaunteya vairagyena chagrihate. This mind can be controlled through obhyasa and vairagya. What is vairagya? Running away from the world, without having attained to the peace of mind, you run away from the world, you carry the whole world with you. What is needed is detachment. What you need before you sleep? Detachment, for such is the Divine Mother's contrivance, our mind becomes naturally detached. That's how we are able to fall asleep. Similarly, we want to give our mind to God. Naturally, we have to detach ourselves from all distractions. What do you do when you do some deep study? What do you do when you do some deep work? Same thing is to be done. And we have to practice. Vairagya means we draw the mind away from outside things. And then give the mind some occupation, otherwise it will fall asleep. Give it the divine name. Let it meditate on the blissful form of the Lord and divine attributes. Then there is no danger of falling asleep. Mind rises to a high place. And now, be brief. In the Chandogya Upanishad, we have what we call Narada Sanat Kumara Samvada. It is Narada as a student meeting the Guru Sanat Kumara. Narada had studied all the branches of learning, has studied all the Vedas, all the Shastras, sciences, arts. But having learned this, he found he had not learned one great thing. He had never learned what he is. He felt a deep sorrow in his heart. With this sorrow he goes to the teacher, Sir, all my life I have learned only mantras. I have not known the Spirit. I am not an Atmavid. I have not known the Spirit. I am in great shoka. Soham bhagavo shochami. O Lord, I am in great grief. He found he had learned many things and not learned about himself, about the ultimate reality. And he felt a great sadness at heart. Do you know? Sadness or misery is the beginning of all spiritual life. You may be an artha, you may be an arthati. One who is cared, wants to get relief from God. One who is frustrated, has one's desires unfulfilled, wants to try God for the fulfillment of desires. This was the case of Jignasu, wants to know the truth. The Guru received him with great tenderness, great kindness. He said, my boy, what you say is true. I shall put you on the way. He took the disciple step by step, and finally he said, you feel grief. This grief will never go unless you know the infinite. Yo vai bhuma tat sukham nalpe sukhamasti. That which is bhuma, that which is infinite. That alone is joy. There is no real joy in the finite. Then this question arose. What is this infinite? He said, it is all-pervading spirit. Above, below, to right, to left, in front and back. It pervades everything. Sir, how to know it? Then here he gives us all spiritual instruction in a nutshell. Ahara Shuddho Sattva Shuddhi, Sattva Shuddho Dhruva Smriti, Smriti Lambhe Sarvaganthinam Vipramuksha. Food should be pure. What food? The food you eat. You are maybe taking the purest of vegetarian food. Does it make your mind pure? You feed a snake with the purest of milk, poisonous snake, it will manufacture poison on it. Something of this poisonous nature in us should go. And that's the very large necessity of spiritual disciplines that I said. There's a great controversy. What is this ahara? Coarse physical food we need. But the food we take through our eyes, through our ears, through our speech, through our mind, that food also should be pure. Then nature becomes pure. So ultimately it comes to this, as someone has put it, all spiritual practices are of a scavengering nature. Their purpose is to cleanse the soul. The moment the soul or the mind is pure, one contacts the Supreme Spirit directly and enjoys divine presence, love and bliss. So here is the task. Ahara Shuddho Sattva Shuddhi, Sattva Shuddho Dhruva Smriti. We are all souls. We have forgotten ourselves. And even if we forget ourselves, we don't lose the soul. Don't you know the simple parable of Ramakrishna? A tigress had attacked a flock of sheep. She gave birth to a cub and died, and the farmer took pity on the little cub, raised it among the sheep, and the cub grew, learned to eat grass, bleat like the sheep, and behaved like a sheep. Years later, a tiger attacked this flock again. To surprise it found the tiger of the forest. There was a real tiger, but running away with all the other sheep. What's the matter with it? Let me get hold of it. He did. And then took him to the woods, took him to a brook. Look at your face and my face. There, they look alike, but I'm still a sheep. Sheep you are not. Take this meat. And first of all, they refused to take meat. This is very strict vegetarian. And as the tiger sheep took it, memory revived. You are not asked to take meat. But they say, meat is a very hard food. So when the Guru comes and tells us, you are a spirit, not matter, we refuse to believe. But as we take what he says as truth, as we follow the path, as we cleanse ourselves, memory revives. There is no mystery in spiritual life. Swami Shivananda or Ramakrishna gave established to tell us, why do people feel proud of spiritual achievement? After all, you realize what you really are. But what a trouble, what an effort. We all must pass through this process of purification. So he said, Ahara Shuddho Sattva Shuddhi, Sattva Shuddho Dhruva Smriti. Once a while, if you remember you are the spirit, that's not enough. Again you forget. Memory must be fixed. That becomes fixed through regular spiritual practice. Here comes this question of Abhyasa. Abhyasa means physical. It means practice. Practice physical, practice mental. The master says spiritual yearning is necessary. You must have spiritual yearning. You must have holy company. Company of those who demonstrate to us by their life what spiritual life is. And when they give us instructions, we feel like following those instructions and attain to higher realization. One must proceed step by step. I asked you, some of you, to read the Eternal Companion, Spiritual Teachings of Swami Brahmananda. Read it. There the Swami places before us the various steps. Of course, all these are based, what he says, are based on the scriptures. Pratama Pratima Puja. One is full of restlessness. Let him begin his worship with the help of an image. Probably with flowers, sandal paste. You light an incense stick or light a lamp. Think of that. But this is all exterior. Next is japa and stotra. Repeat the divine name, sing the glory, but think of the Lord in the inner world. But asked to meditate on the heart, isn't it? In the heart. Why is the heart? The physiological heart? No. It means the inner world. That spiritual region, that plane of spiritual consciousness corresponding to what we call the heart. The consciousness that is here permeates the entire body, permeates the entire mind, the consciousness of the individual spirit, the consciousness of the spirit. As you go deeper, first of all you think it is inside, as inside the body. Then you find it inside the mind. You proceed further, you find God at the soul of your soul. So, go inward. Here go forward is, Master says, go inward more and more with the help of your spiritual practice. So you repeat the divine name, sing the glory of the Lord, but install him in the inner world, so no dependent on an outside form, picture or image. You install your Ishtadevata in your heart within you. But mind will be fully concentrated. So, repeat the divine name and think of it. Repeat your stotra and think of its glory. Japa should always mean sajjapa sadartha bhavanam, not that like repetition. As you repeat the divine name, you think of the Lord, artha bhavana. The first stage in artha bhavana is think of the blissful form of the Lord. Our mind is full of human forms. As I say, sometimes forms of human cats, dogs, asses, elephants. Isn't it? We need a form, we need a holy form, who will bring to us not thoughts of anger, hatred, lust, fear, jealousy and so on, would bring us holy thoughts. Because he is the embodiment of those thoughts. Herein lies the utility of first meditating on the holy form of a really spiritual personality. Proceed further. Think with the embodiment of insight, purity, knowledge, devotion, love and divine love and bliss. Later on, when you repeat your mantra, you think your Ishtadevata is no other than Bhagavan. So, japa takes you to go deeper and deeper. When you feel a little of the divine presence, then really you come to have meditation. We use the meditation very glibly. I am doing my dhyana. Lord bless me. There is no dhyana at all. I am just thinking of something and I call that dhyana. Dhyana means nirvichinna tuladharavat tatra pratyekatanata, being immersed in a thought. We can't do that all of a sudden. Let me repeat the divine name and think of Ishtadevata in some form or other. And when, as the result of my japa and dhyana on the blissful form, mind becomes finer, I really feel something. Something that is more real than the outside world. And so long as I feel that, naturally my mind will be absorbed in that. That's the secret of practicing dhyana. Uttamo Manasi Puja. Manasi Puja is really dhyana meditation. You don't take the help of an outside symbol. You don't take the help of the sound, which sound was a symbol. You become absorbed in the consciousness of Lord, or your Ishtadevata, maybe with form, without form, and this leads to divine presence. What's the practice can you ordinarily do? At least don't begin with dhyana. Maybe begin with external puja. But these days external puja is very difficult. It takes time to gather flowers with a sandal paste. So do little mental worship. Install your Ishtadevata within. Do little mental worship, maybe with mental flowers, mental sandal paste, and so on. Offer yourself to the Supreme Being, like that. And then try to go deeper. Secret of dhyana is this. As we all complain, I want to think of God. My mind runs after things of the world. Why? The world is more real. God is unreal. But to the extent you feel the inner presence of Ishtadevata as a result of japa and dhyana, through the power of the divine name, through meditation in divine form, then you will be able to be absorbed in the divine spirit. You will be blessed with his vision, and then God becomes the Guru. Miracle takes place. God the Guru takes you higher and higher and higher and higher. As Divine Mother took Ramakrishna to higher stages of spiritual evolution and realization. This also happens in the case of all devotees. The Ishtadevata as the Guru takes you higher and higher until you have reached the highest, until your life has been filled with divine presence, purity, love and bliss. Now, we are discussing a grand topic. Now the question is, what can we do ourselves? Bhagavan Ramakrishna speaks of three kinds of ananda. We are all seekers of ananda. First comes Vishayananda, that is the ananda that we get through the contact of the senses with the sense object. Next is Bhajanananda, the ananda that comes to us as a result of bhajan, result of singing the divine name, as a result of doing our japa, so on. And the highest is Brahmananda. Brahmananda is beyond our reach. But what is within our reach is this. We can and we should repeat the divine name, meditate on the divine in any way we please. We should sing the divine glory, get a little of his joy. All joy comes from him. Physical joy. In his name there is a joy, there is bliss. In his beautiful form there is joy and bliss. In his very thought there is joy and bliss. So let us try to follow the spiritual path and try to enjoy at least Bhajanananda. Make our life sweeter. Then we'll be able to make the lives of those also around us sweeter. I began, the religion that we are taught is such. It may begin with egocentricity, but as we advance, our religion should spread. The joy that I get, the love that I get, the bliss that I get, I must be able to share with others. As I make my spiritual progress, I must be of service also to others, so that they too may make spiritual progress, may follow the spiritual path, may have a share in divine love and divine bliss, and let them try to take this to others. No more to approach anybody as a beggar. Approach is everybody as a giver. You give out of the abundance, the Lord grants you. Then what happens? So Brahman is to tell us, live your life in such a way that you may become a blessing to yourself, a blessing to others. Let us remember that. Make our life a life of blessing and try to share this blessing with others.